Your diet's impact on the planet depends on where you live. This is from the Washington Post, and it's kind of interesting, but mostly not. Mostly frustrating. It's based on this recent study. The carbon hoofprint of cities is shaped by geography and production in the livestock supply chain. So your first thought may be transportation, but like we know that's a myth. We know transportation makes up such a small part of a food's footprint, unless it is air-shipped. Most food is not. Eating a steak or a burger in Milwaukee, where the meat comes from nearby dairy cows, generates fewer emissions than in Oklahoma City, where beef tends to come from feedlots. Some cattle operators near McAllen, Texas, store cow manure in open lagoons that release methane into the atmosphere. And grazing cattle in Kansas and Nebraska generate more emissions than other livestock, since it takes them longer to gain weight compared with those raised in feedlots. And you can see the map here. It's going from purple to the dark red. So the lower emission areas are right around here, around Michigan, a few places in California when sourcing within the state, and then some of the highest areas like down here in Texas, again, because of the manure lagoons. Many Americans are likely to keep eating meat, even though beef has become more expensive in recent months. Still, the new study offers a roadmap to determining your diet's climate impact, including what you can do if you live in a place where it has a greater environmental toll. Okay, but like, I'm not seeing a whole lot of purple here, guys. What is the point of this exactly? If you're that dedicated to beef, move to the upper Midwest. Go and eat the cold dairy cattle, which has lower carbon emissions. Exactly, what is the point of this? Move somewhere else. I mean, I appreciate him saying that, but who is actually gonna do that, right? Most people are just gonna go, fuck you, I'm gonna eat what I want, or, oh, I already live there, cool, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Like, how is this helpful? Researchers modeled pollutants released at every step of the supply chain, from what it takes to get feed for the animals to the climate impact of raising and butchering them. This allowed them to estimate the footprints of more than 3,000 towns and cities. And they did not look at Alaska, Puerto Rico, or Hawaii due to a lack of data. So if we look up my place, Portland, Oregon, we get a little lower than the US average, 1,056 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per year on average. That's 171 pounds of meat, 77 kilograms per capita. But this is still a lot compared to like tofu. Even if we look at one of the lower, what did they say earlier? Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 584, so almost half of the US average. 80 kilograms per capita, so that works out to about 7.3 kilograms CO2 equivalent per kilogram of beef. That is more than double your average impact from tofu. And tofu impact can be much lower depending on where it's sourced. And again, why is Milwaukee's impact almost half that of the US average? Dairy cows. According to Our World in Data, emissions for beef from dairy herds is lower than beef from a beef herd, which makes sense because you are getting milk from the dairy cows as well. You can see here 33 versus 98. It's a pretty substantial reduction. And I think a couple of like restaurant groups have tried to push for dairy beef, as a more sustainable option. And it's been somewhat successful, but also people have said it's just not as good because you're slaughtering older cows. It's not going to be as tender, the meat, the marbling isn't going to be there. Yeah, it's hard to talk about these things because animals, guys, they feel things. We're not talking about fucking beans. Like, we're not talking about commodities. Like, they're treated as commodities, yes, but yeah, feels icky. It's remarkable to see smart people be this cruel and bloodless. A recommendation to eat cold dairy cows. A cold dairy cow is a cow who's forcibly impregnated year after year so she develops milk. A cow whose resulting son or daughter is dragged away shortly after birth to be killed so we can have the milk meant for him or her. A cow who becomes so spent and infected from all this that she's killed. That's who you're eating to be responsible. All this time and energy to study the least environmentally nightmarish scenario could have been spent telling folks how easy, cheap, delicious, environmentally sound, and healthy it is to leave animals off our plates, even those of us who used to love eating them and what comes out of them. Pesticides, though, oh Lord. Yeah, this is one of those comments that's very annoying to virtually everyone, but is right, and this is a paper that seems very reasonable and, middle ground and looking at the data that is ultimately going to be seen as like, you're part of the problem. You mention ethics once in passing. you're part of the problem. But in the here and now, maybe this is also part of the solution, presenting the data in this way. At the very least saying, hey, meat is bad for the environment, full stop, but maybe it's a little bit better in other areas, right? I mean, at the very least, we're not debating that plants are better. And I do find it interesting. They include this at the bottom, little like info about the authors, and all of them reduce meat in some way. Daniel Wolf generally avoids beef, save for the holidays, when he reverse sears a prime rib. I don't know what that means. Beef a few times a month, is working on cutting it down to just once. Former vegetarian who now eats beef once a week, and a pescatarian since 2008. Which makes a lot of sense, right? You're more likely to address these issues if you've already accepted them in your own life, right? And you're already like reducing your beef consumption or not consuming it at all. But really the main takeaway should be you very likely don't live in the purple, and even if you do, still bad. Thank you for watching, guys. I would love to know your thoughts on articles like these. Do they frustrate you? I don't know. Do you have the same experience as me where I'm like frustrated, but I also see the value, but I also don't at all see the value? I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, look, we're talking about a study that's ultimately promoting eating less meat, or at least less beef. They modeled these scenarios, swapping half of beef for chicken, which is a whole thing in and of itself, cutting food waste in half, meatless Mondays, combined impact 51%. Like, that's good for the most part. The average American eats 5 servings of beef a week. So, all right, you can still have 2 burgers a week. Goldstein is not a vegetarian, he said, has a burger once in a while. People are probably more likely to adopt this sort of approach than just no beef ever. But even that, I think, is a large expectation. Like, people just don't care that much about the environment. They certainly don't care that much about animal welfare unless it's dogs and cats. And while I certainly agree with the vegan comment about the horrors of the dairy cow industry, it's not like they either produce this study or they promote veganism. That's not realistic, right? That's not going to happen. So I don't even know what I'm trying to say other than I appreciate all of you who don't participate in any of this. It's really important and it's really special in this day and age. Not to say that vegans are morally superior or anything like that, but like it is a special thing to say no to something most people do multiple times a day. Anyway, please do like and subscribe. And of course, thank you so much to my members here on YouTube and my patrons at patreon.com/unnaturalvegans. I've had a large influx of members here on YouTube recently, and I don't know why. I should probably check the analytics further because I think it tells you like what videos people join on or something. But yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, I post 2 exclusive videos a month for tier 2 and up members and patrons. I do a vlog and I also do a controversial topic, something usually unrelated to veganism. All right, that's it for me, guys. New video soon.